This video is brought to you by Lightspeed, We're a Zulu, and by WX Weather.
Hi everyone, Russ Niles reporting from AirVenture 2008 in Oshkosh. We're wrapping up the show today with some general impressions and some general observations on how it went. And with me is Paul Bertorelli. He's our editorial director and editor of Aviation Consumer. Paul, what's the mood? How are people feeling?
Well, we were concerned that people would be put off by high gas prices and softness in the economy, and so we've canvassed some of the showgoers, and we've had a look around the booths, and my impression is that there are fewer people here. We're certainly not noticing it. One of the vendors told me that his receipts towards the middle of the week were within $500 of last year, so apparently the attendance is here. We'll know when EAA reports, but so far it's been a pretty positive show.
And also with me is Mark Cook. He's editor of Kit Planes magazine. What were you seeing at the show, Mark?
I tend to agree with that assessment. I would say, the vendors were kind of preparing for the worst with the economy the way it is, and the people I talked to, both out on the flight line and in the buildings, were pleasantly surprised that they had as much foot traffic as they did. And there's of course a lot of new technology coming out too. That kind of drives things. So I think that's overall pretty positive report.
Okay, well, what were some of the things that we were seeing at the show, Paul? What excited you?
Well, excuse me. I'm always surprised at Oshkosh at the things I don't expect to see. One of the things that we knew was on the schedule was a demonstration of the Rocket Racing League, and I went on the website and I looked at their plans, and I thought, well, this is just another dingbat idea, and this is really not going to go anywhere. But we were sitting in the office towards the middle of the week, and they did the demonstration. We heard it. It sounded like an acetylene torch firing up. We all looked at each other and said, Rocket Racing League, and out we ran. And as soon as you saw that velocity with a 15-foot bright yellow-orange trail of flame coming out the back, all you can say is, oh, hell yes. And where can I get one of those things? So I think that project has legs. I think it's going to be very entertaining. On a more practical level, we did see some power plant advances here. We talked about the Lycoming initiatives earlier in the week. They're introducing FADEC, and they're introducing a small LSA engine, which in this market I think is pretty bold. We didn't really expect to see that. Another surprise was that Rolls-Royce showed up with a turboprop engine, turboshaft engine, in the 250 to 450 horsepower range, and they intend to compete with piston engines. And last, Diamond showed up with its Ostro diesel, and they are going to seriously make a run at that. So it's very encouraging to see that.
Mark, what excited you about the show? What did you see that made a difference, particularly maybe to kit builders?
There's a lot of stuff. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of technology coming. I think one of the key stories is kind of the advancement of EFIS on the experimental side. This has been coming and building for a long time. The kind of thing that got me going is Dynon introduced or showing an advanced prototype of a new system that has synthetic vision, highway in the sky, potentially expands to have a NavCom radio in it, a transponder, all with line replaceable units, and probably going to be in the sub $10,000 range with pretty much everything you want on it. Plus, you can hook it to an autopilot, and I think that's the industry is going in that direction. Dynon has been sort of the low-cost player, had very simple instruments, and for them to kind of jump into this real, not quite high-end, but definitely mid-range segment with both feet is an indication of where that's going. Along with power plant technologies, Paul mentioned, we see the SMA diesel now that's being fitted to an experimental. They call it a Pulsar. Most builders would know it as a KISS Cruiser. It's, the company hasn't really found any traction with OEMs and the retrofit market, kind of in dribs and drabs. And up to this point, it's really said we don't want to do experimentals. Now it's said, well, maybe this is a good platform to try this out. I think it's a good change of pace. A lot of experimental guys really are experimental. They want to try a lot of new things. So I think there's some potential in that market as well. And of course, the big talking points I heard from a lot of people had to do with the 51% rule. The FAA had a meeting here on Monday, kind of a meet the constituents thing that was rather a bruising report from builders who really were fairly adamant in their views that the rules as they're written, the proposed rules, are just not what they need to be, and they're kind of haphazard and poorly written and confusing. It's really not what we need in the industry at this time. But in talking to a lot of people in the background, they're saying, well, we've been talking to the FAA and we think we're making really good progress. The EAA is committed to fighting the fabrication part of that rule. So I think there's, from a kind of a rough start in the week, they're gelling a little bit on that account. So I think we're going to have a little bit better news coming out of that. I certainly hope so.
Well, I guess from my point of view, the story of the show was just so bizarre. Nobody really understands what happened. Why Eclipse Aviation would pick the opening day of AirVenture 2008 to fire their CEO in a public execution like I've never seen before is beyond me. You guys got any insight into that?
I really don't. It was completely unexpected, and certainly Eclipse has been having its problems, and some of the owners and position holders we talked to expected to see this happen quite some time ago, but why it happened the very first press conference at the media breakfast on Monday morning is baffling.
Well, it sure makes good theater anyway.
It does do that, but and now the question is, what is the future of Eclipse? Will Roel Pieper is stepping in as the acting CEO. They will be looking for a new CEO. What does that CEO have to do, Paul?
I think the first thing Eclipse as an organization has to do is to straighten out its production problems. They've had a very difficult time producing the volume they need to generate the revenue to get the company into the black. And secondly, they need to complete certification on the airplane. They are essentially delivering incomplete airplanes. In this market, I don't think you can practically expect to succeed delivering an airplane that doesn't have FMS, that doesn't have GPS, that doesn't have a moving map. So they've got a challenge ahead of them.
Well, while they're sorting that out, their competitors are starting to nip at their heels. We saw the arrival of the Cirrus Vision SJ50 this week, and also during the show, PiperJet had its first flight. By all accounts, it seemed like a successful one. So this jet market is getting crowded, and Eclipse does not have the lead in volume and in numbers and in hours flown that it expected to have by this time in its lifetime. So I think they've got their work cut out for them. Anyhow, I don't think that you can talk about this show unless you talk about the jetpack. Okay, it's not a jet, but I thought it was really cool. I thought, and what really impressed me about the Martin jetpack, and he'll have to defend that name for the rest of his life probably, is that obviously this was a slow, determined, and methodical process. He didn't just jump into it with something that sort of half-assed worked, and then presented it as kind of like a development tool, a way to raise money. This thing is ready to fly, I think. And yes, it's kind of clunky looking, and it's nowhere near George Jetson, but you can see somebody flying around in it in a stadium, in a football stadium, or something like that. I don't think it'll ever have any real practical use, but I think it's more than a flying weed whacker, and I think it has some legs.
Well, for anybody who has $100,000, they can have a go at it.
Exactly.
Anyhow, it's what I like about Oshkosh. You just never know what you're going to see, and you definitely are going to see something that entertains you. So we've had a great time at the show. Hope you've enjoyed our coverage, and we'll see you next year.